Maya had always been different from other children. While her classmates chatted loudly during lunch breaks and raised their hands eagerly in class, she preferred to sit quietly in the corner, observing everything around her with her deep brown eyes. Her silence wasn't born from shyness or fear. It came from a speech disorder that made words difficult to form and even harder to speak clearly. At 15, Maya attended Lincoln High School, where teenagers could be especially cruel to anyone who stood out. Her stammering speech made her an easy target for bullies who found entertainment in her struggles to communicate. During English class, when Mrs. Papalsbacket passed, Peterson called on her to read aloud. Maya would stand up slowly, her hands trembling slightly as she opened her textbook. Quick, get Brown, she would begin, and immediately snickers would ripple through the classroom. Jason Miller, the school's star athlete, would make exaggerated stuttering sounds under his breath, causing his friends to burst into laughter. Maya's cheeks would burn with embarrassment, but she never cried in front of them. She had learned early that tears only gave bullies more power. The worst moments came during lunch when Maya sat alone at a corner table in the cafeteria. Groups of students would walk past her table, making mock stuttering sounds or pretending to have conversations in broken speech. Some would point at her and whisper loud enough for her to hear, "There's the girl who can't even talk properly." Maya would continue eating her sandwich, pretending not to notice, but inside her heart ached with loneliness and frustration. Her mother, Sarah, worked double shifts as a nurse to support them after Maya's father had left when she was 7. Sarah noticed her daughter's growing withdrawal and the sadness that seemed to follow her like a shadow. During quiet evenings at home, she would gently encourage Maya to share what happened at school, but Maya would only shake her head and retreat to her room. One particularly difficult day, Maya overheard a group of girls talking about the upcoming school talent show. "Can you imagine if Maya tried to participate?" one girl laughed. "She'd probably take 10 minutes just to say her name." The cruel laughter that followed felt like knives cutting through Maya's heart. She decided that day that she needed to find a way to express herself without words. Walking home from school, Maya noticed a small sign outside an old building that read Dragon's Den Martial Arts Academy. Through the large windows, she could see people in white uniforms practicing coordinated movements. Their bodies moved with precision and grace, speaking a language that needed no words. For the first time in months, Maya felt a spark of interest. That evening, she researched martial arts online, learning about discipline, respect, and inner strength. She discovered that many martial arts emphasized mental focus and self-control rather than just physical prowess. The idea of learning to defend herself while building confidence appealed to her, but more importantly, she was drawn to the idea of excelling in something that didn't require speaking. The next day after school, Maya gathered her courage and pushed open the heavy door of Dragon's Den Martial Arts Academy. The smell of sweat and determination filled the air, and the sound of feet moving across mats created a rhythm that felt almost musical. An elderly Japanese man with kind eyes and graying hair approached her. "I'm Sensei Takeshi," he said with a gentle bow. "How can I help you, young lady?" Maya's throat tightened as she tried to form words. I want to learn karate," she managed to say, expecting the familiar look of impatience or amusement she was used to seeing. Instead, Sensei Takeshi nodded respectfully. "Karate is not about speaking," he said simply. "It's about finding your inner voice through discipline and practice. Would you like to watch a class?" For the next hour, Maya sat on a bench and observed as students of various ages practiced forms, sparred, and learned from their instructor. She noticed that communication happened through demonstration, respect, and understanding, rather than constant talking. When students bowed to each other, when they helped fallen partners to their feet, when they concentrated intensely on perfecting a technique, all of this spoke volumes without a single word. After class, Sensei Takeshi approached her again. "What did you see?" he asked. Maya thought carefully before answering. Respect," she said softly. "Strength that comes from inside." The sensei smiled. "You understand already. Many people talk about strength, but few recognize it when they see it. Your mother will need to sign permission forms, but if you're willing to commit to training 3 times a week and promise to practice at home, I believe karate can teach you many valuable lessons." That night, Maya approached her mother with the enrollment forms. Sarah was surprised but supportive, recognizing that her daughter needed something positive in her life. "If this makes you happy, sweetheart, Then we'll find a way to make it work, she said, even though the monthly fees would strain their already tight budget. Maya's first official class was intimidating. She felt awkward in the borrowed uniform that was slightly too large, and she worried about making mistakes in front of the other students. But as soon as the class began with a formal bow, she felt something shift inside her. Here, perfectionism wasn't about speaking fluently. It was about mastering precise movements and developing mental discipline. Sensei Takeshi started her with basic stances and simple punches. Karate begins with respect for yourself and others, he explained. Every movement has purpose. Every practice session is an opportunity to grow stronger, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually. Maya absorbed every word, finding that when the focus was on learning rather than speaking, her confidence began to emerge. The other students in her beginner class were welcoming and supportive. There was Marcus, a shy 12-year-old who had been bullied for his weight, and Jennifer, a college student who wanted to learn self-defense. They formed an unlikely trio, each finding their own reasons for pursuing martial arts, each supporting the others without judgment. During her second week, Maya experienced her first breakthrough. While practicing a basic form called kata, she felt completely absorbed in the precise movements. Her mind quieted all the anxious thoughts about speaking correctly or being laughed at. For those few minutes, she existed purely in the moment, her body moving with growing confidence and grace. Sensei Takeshi noticed her progress. "You have natural balance and focus," he told her after class. "These are gifts that cannot be taught. They come from within. Continue training with dedication and you will discover strengths you didn't know you possessed." At school, Maya's demeanor began to change subtly. While she still avoided speaking when possible, she carried herself with slightly more confidence. When Jason Miller made his usual mocking sounds during English class, Maya didn't sink into her chair as deeply as before. She had begun to understand that her worth wasn't determined by how fluently she could speak, but by the strength of her character and the dedication she brought to her goals. Her training became a sanctuary. 3 evenings a week, Maya would walk into Dragon's Den and transform from the quiet, often mocked schoolgirl into a focused student of martial arts. She practiced her forms at home in her small bedroom, moving slowly and deliberately, feeling her body grow stronger and more coordinated with each session. One evening during her 3rd week of training, Sensei Takeshi gathered the class together. "Next month, our academy will host a regional karate tournament," he announced. "This is an opportunity for experienced students to test their skills against competitors from other schools. I encourage those who have been training for at least 2 years to consider participating." Maya listened with interest but assumed the announcement didn't apply to her. She was still learning basic techniques and had only been training for a few weeks. However, as other students discussed their excitement about the tournament, she felt a longing to be part of something bigger than her daily practice routine. After class, she approached Sensei Takeshi hesitantly. "Sensei," she began, "how long before I could compete?" The elderly instructor considered her question seriously. "Competition isn't just about technical skill," he said. "It requires mental strength, confidence, and the ability to perform under pressure. These qualities take time to develop, but I've noticed that you possess natural determination. With intensive training and complete dedication, perhaps in 6 months you could be ready for a beginner-level tournament." 6 months felt like a lifetime to Maya, but it also gave her something concrete to work toward. She asked Sensei Takeshi if she could train more frequently, and he agreed to let her attend additional classes and practice sessions. Maya threw herself into her training with fierce determination, arriving early to practice forms and staying late to work on techniques. Her mother noticed the positive changes in her daughter. Maya walked taller, slept more peacefully, and seemed to have found a sense of purpose that had been missing for years. Even though they had to carefully budget to afford the increased training fees, Sarah felt it was the best investment she could make in her daughter's future. As weeks passed, Maya's skills improved dramatically. Her basic techniques became more precise, her stances more stable, and her confidence more evident. She learned to channel her frustration and pain from years of bullying into focused energy that made her training more effective. Every punch she threw carried the weight of every cruel laugh she had endured. Every kick represented her determination to prove that silence didn't mean weakness. The transformation wasn't just physical. Maya began to understand that respect was earned through actions, not words. In the dojo, she was valued for her dedication, her willingness to help newer students, and her respectful attitude toward everyone she encountered. For the first time in her life, she was part of a community where her speech difficulties didn't define her. However, the challenges at school continued. If anything, Maya's growing confidence seemed to irritate her tormentors more. They sensed that their words weren't cutting as deeply as before, so some began to escalate their harassment. During gym class, when teams were chosen for volleyball, Maya was always picked last, with dramatic sighs and eye-rolling from whichever team was stuck with her. One afternoon, as Maya gathered her books from her locker, she overheard Jason Miller talking to his friends about the upcoming regional karate tournament that would be held at the community center. "My cousin Brad is competing," he bragged. "He's been training for 5 years and has won 3 tournaments already. He's basically unstoppable. I bet he'll destroy everyone there." Maya's ears perked up as she learned that Jason's cousin was Brad Miller, a 17-year-old karate champion from a neighboring school district. She had heard Sensei Takeshi mention Brad Miller as one of the most promising young competitors in the region, someone who had been training since childhood and had natural athletic ability combined with years of experience. As Jason continued boasting about his cousin's achievements, Maya felt a spark of something she had never experienced before. Not just a desire to prove herself, but a burning need to show everyone who had dismissed and mocked her that they had underestimated her completely. She realized that in 6 months, she could potentially face Brad Miller in competition, and for the first time she allowed herself to dream of not just participating, but actually winning. Maya's training intensified beyond anything she had imagined possible. Every morning before school, she woke up at 5:30 to practice her forms in the small backyard behind their apartment. Her mother would watch from the kitchen window while preparing coffee, amazed at her daughter's dedication as Maya moved through precise kicks and punches in the dawn light. Sensei Takeshi noticed Maya's increased determination and decided to accelerate her training program. "You have the heart of a true martial artist," he told her during a private lesson. "But heart alone will not win tournaments. You must develop speed, power, and most importantly, the ability to read your opponent's intentions before they move." The dojo became Maya's second home. She arrived immediately after school each day and stayed until closing time. While other students practiced their assigned techniques, Maya worked on advanced combinations that typically weren't taught until much later in training. Her hands, once soft and uncalloused, developed the rough skin of someone who spent hours hitting practice boards and heavy bags. Marcus and Jennifer, her training partners from the beginner class, watched Maya's transformation with a mixture of admiration and concern. "You're pushing yourself really hard," Jennifer observed one evening as they changed out of their uniforms. "Are you sure you're not overdoing it?" Maya paused, considering how to express what drove her without revealing the full depth of her pain and determination. "I have, something to prove," she said simply, and something in her tone made Jennifer decide not to press further. What Maya didn't share was the detailed plan she had developed. She had researched Brad Miller extensively, watching videos of his tournament fights online and studying his techniques. Brad was fast and powerful, with excellent form, an aggressive fighting style that overwhelmed his opponents. He favored high kicks and rapid combinations that left little room for counterattack. Most of his victories came from outpacing his opponents until they made mistakes from exhaustion. Sensei Takeshi began teaching Maya advanced breathing techniques and meditation practices. "Physical skill is only half of martial arts," he explained during their sessions. "The mind must be calm and focused, even in the heat of competition. When you can control your thoughts and emotions, you can respond to any situation with clarity and precision." Maya embraced the mental training as eagerly as the physical aspects. During her meditation sessions, she practiced visualizing herself competing, staying calm under pressure, and executing perfect techniques regardless of what her opponent did. She learned to quiet the voice in her head that had been shaped by years of ridicule and replace it with affirmations of strength and capability. At school, the bullying continued, but Maya's response to it began to change dramatically. When students made mocking sounds or cruel comments about her speech, she no longer felt the familiar crushing shame. Instead, she felt a cold determination that surprised her with its intensity. She began to see her tormentors not as powerful figures who could hurt her, but as obstacles that would eventually be overcome. During one particularly difficult day, Jason Miller cornered Maya in the hallway between classes. "I heard you're taking karate classes," he said with a smirk. "What's next? Going to enter some tournament and embarrass yourself in front of everyone? Maybe you think you can fight now." His friends laughed, expecting Maya to hurry away as she usually did. Instead, Maya looked directly at Jason with steady eyes. Maybe I will, she said quietly, and something in her voice made Jason's smirk falter slightly. She walked away without rushing, leaving Jason and his friends confused by her unexpected confidence. Word spread quickly through school that Maya, the quiet girl who couldn't speak properly, thought she could compete in martial arts. The story grew with each telling, becoming more ridiculous and generating more laughter. Students who had never bothered to notice Maya before now pointed her out in hallways, whispering about her supposed delusions of athletic ability. Maya used every mocking laugh as fuel for her training. During sparring sessions at the dojo, she imagined facing every person who had ever made her feel small and worthless. Her techniques became sharper, her movements more explosive, and her focus more intense. Sensei Takeshi began pairing her with more advanced students, recognizing that she needed greater challenges to continue progressing. One evening, 6 weeks before the tournament, Sensei Takeshi introduced Maya to a special training partner. "This is David Chen," he said, indicating a lean, quiet man in his early 20s. "David competed professionally for 3 years and now helps me prepare students for major tournaments. He will be your training partner for the remaining weeks of preparation." David proved to be unlike any opponent Maya had faced before. Where her usual sparring partners were learning alongside her, David possessed years of competition experience and could simulate the pressure and unpredictability she would face in a real tournament. During their first session, he systematically exposed every weakness in Maya's technique, every gap in her defense, and every predictable pattern in her attacks. "You have good basic skills," David told her afterward, "but tournament fighting is completely different from practice. Your opponents will be trying to hurt you, not help you learn. They'll use your weaknesses against you and push you beyond your comfort zone in every possible way." Maya absorbed this feedback without discouragement. Instead, she asked David to identify her 3 biggest weaknesses so she could focus her remaining training time most effectively. Together, they developed a specialized training program designed specifically to prepare her for facing Brad Miller's style of fighting. The training became brutally intense. David pushed Maya to fight when she was exhausted, stressed, and facing techniques she had never encountered before. He taught her to recognize and counter the specific combinations that Brad Miller favored, and more importantly, how to create opportunities to use her own strengths against aggressive opponents. "Brad Miller relies on overwhelming his opponents with speed and power," David explained during one of their sessions. "But he has a weakness. He becomes predictable when he's winning. If you can survive his initial attacks and force him into a longer fight, you might be able to exploit patterns in his technique." Maya's mother watched her daughter's transformation with a mixture of pride and worry. Maya had always been a determined child, but this level of intensity was something entirely new. Some evenings, Maya would come home with bruises from training, ice her injuries, eat dinner quickly, and then spend another hour practicing forms in her room before doing homework late into the night. "Sweetheart," Sarah said one evening as she helped Maya ice a particularly sore shoulder, "I'm proud of how hard you're working, but I want to make sure you're doing this for the right reasons. You don't need to prove anything to those cruel kids at school." Maya considered her mother's words carefully. "I'm not doing this for them," she said slowly. "I'm doing it for me, to see what I'm capable of." As the tournament approached, Maya's training schedule became even more demanding. She practiced her forms until they were absolutely perfect, drilled combinations until they became instinctive, and worked on conditioning until her body could endure punishment that would have been unimaginable months earlier. Sensei Takeshi began incorporating mental pressure into her training. He would have other students create distractions during her forms, make loud noises during her meditation sessions, and critique her techniques harshly to simulate the stress of competition. Maya learned to maintain focus and execute precise techniques regardless of external circumstances. 3 weeks before the tournament, Maya achieved a breakthrough that surprised even David. During a particularly intense sparring session, she managed to counter one of his advanced combinations and land a clean technique that would have scored points in competition. For a brief moment, David's expression showed genuine surprise and respect. "That was excellent timing and technique," he told her afterward. "You're starting to think like a real competitor, not just someone going through the motions of training." The validation from someone as experienced as David gave Maya a confidence boost that she felt throughout her entire body. She began to believe, for the first time, that she might actually have a chance to succeed in the tournament, not just participate. At school, Maya's transformation was becoming noticeable to anyone who paid attention. She walked with straighter posture, made more direct eye contact, and seemed less affected by the usual taunts and harassment. Some of her tormentors, sensing that their power over her was diminishing, began to escalate their behavior in attempts to regain control. During lunch one day, Jason Miller approached Maya's table with several friends. "So I heard you're really planning to compete in that tournament," he said loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "My cousin Brad is going to be there, and he's been asking me about you. He thinks it's hilarious that some stuttering girl thinks she can fight him." Maya looked up from her lunch with calm eyes. "He doesn't know me yet," she said simply. Jason's friends laughed at her response, but Jason himself felt unsettled by the quiet confidence in her voice. "We'll all be there to watch," he said, trying to regain his sense of superiority. "It'll be entertaining to see you get destroyed in front of everyone." "Good," Maya replied. I hope you pay attention." That afternoon, Maya trained with an intensity that impressed even David. Every technique was executed with perfect form. Every combination flowed smoothly, and her focus was absolute. She was channeling all of her anger, frustration, and determination into becoming the best martial artist she could possibly be. Sensei Takeshi pulled her aside after class. "Tomorrow, we will have a special training session," he told her. "David has arranged for you to spar with some competitive fighters from other schools. This will be your final test before the tournament." Maya nodded, feeling a mixture of nervousness and excitement. She had been preparing for months, pushing herself beyond every limit she had ever imagined. Soon, she would discover whether all of her sacrifice and dedication had been enough to transform her from a bullied, silent girl into someone capable of competing at the highest level. That night, as Maya practiced her forms one final time in her bedroom, she reflected on how much her life had changed since she first walked into Dragon's Den Martial Arts Academy. She was still the same person who struggled with speech, but she had discovered reservoirs of strength, determination, and skill that she never knew existed within herself. The tournament was now just days away, and Maya felt ready to face whatever challenges awaited her. She had learned that true strength came not from being able to speak perfectly, but from having the courage to pursue your goals regardless of what others thought or said. Soon, everyone who had ever laughed at her silence would see exactly what she was capable of achieving. The morning of the regional karate tournament arrived with crisp autumn air and bright sunshine streaming through Maya's bedroom window. She had barely slept, not from nervousness, but from a calm excitement that seemed to energize her entire body. After months of intensive preparation, the day had finally come to test everything she had learned. Maya's morning routine was deliberate and focused. She ate a light breakfast of fruit and toast, performed her meditation exercises, and ran through her favorite kata one final time in the backyard. Her movements were fluid and precise, each technique executed with the confidence of countless hours of practice. Her mother watched from the doorway, marveling at the transformation in her daughter. "I'm so proud of you. No matter what happens today," Sarah said as they prepared to leave for the community center where the tournament would be held. Maya hugged her mother tightly. "Thank you for believing in me," she whispered. The community center was buzzing with activity when they arrived. Competitors from dozens of martial arts schools across the region were warming up, their families and supporters filling the bleacher seats around multiple competition mats. The air hummed with nervous energy, excited conversations, and the sounds of practice techniques being performed. Sensei Takeshi met Maya at the entrance, carrying her competition uniform and equipment bag. "Remember everything we have practiced," he said as they walked toward the registration area. "Trust your training, stay calm, and fight your own fight. Do not try to match your opponent's style. Use your own strengths." As Maya registered for her division, she caught sight of Brad Miller for the first time in person. He was exactly as she had expected from watching his tournament videos. Tall, athletically built, with confident posture and an easy smile as he joked with his teammates. Several people gathered around him, clearly recognizing him as the favorite to win the division. What Maya didn't expect was to see Jason Miller and several of her classmates from school sitting in the spectator section. They had actually come to watch her compete, presumably expecting to witness her humiliation in front of a crowd. Jason waved mockingly when he spotted her, making exaggerated stuttering motions with his mouth. Instead of feeling intimidated, Maya felt a surge of determination. Every person who had ever laughed at her, dismissed her, or treated her as less than capable was about to witness something they would never forget. Maya's first match was against a competitor named Lisa Chang from a school an hour away. Lisa had been training for 3 years and moved with obvious skill and confidence. As they bowed to each other before beginning, Maya could hear some spectators whispering about the new girl who looked nervous. The match began with Lisa attacking aggressively, trying to establish dominance early. Maya remained calm, using the defensive techniques she had practiced extensively with David. She absorbed Lisa's initial combinations, looking for openings and patterns. Halfway through the first round, Maya saw her opportunity and executed a perfect counterattack combination that scored 2 clean points. The spectators from Maya's school fell silent, surprised by her obvious skill and composure. Lisa looked confused, having expected an easy victory against an inexperienced opponent. Maya pressed her advantage, using her superior conditioning to maintain a high pace while Lisa began to tire. The match ended with Maya winning decisively, 5-1. Sensei Takeshi nodded approvingly as Maya returned to their preparation area. "Excellent control and patience," he said. "You fought exactly as we practiced, calm, focused, and smart." Maya's second match was against Kevin Rodriguez, a stocky, powerful fighter who relied on strength and intimidation. Kevin tried to rattle Maya before the match by staring her down and making aggressive movements during the pre-fight protocol. Maya met his gaze steadily, her breathing controlled and her mind clear. Kevin's strategy became obvious immediately. He wanted to end the fight quickly, with powerful techniques that would overwhelm a less experienced opponent. Maya had encountered this style many times during her training with David, and she knew exactly how to respond. She used her superior speed and footwork to stay just out of range of Kevin's power techniques, then moved in with precise counterattacks when he overextended himself. By the middle of the second round, Kevin was breathing heavily and growing frustrated. His wild, powerful attacks were missing their target, while Maya's calculated responses were scoring consistently. The match ended 6-2 in Maya's favor, with Kevin looking shocked at being outfought by someone he had clearly underestimated. The spectators from Maya's school were no longer laughing. Jason Miller sat forward in his seat, watching with growing amazement as the girl he had tormented for years systematically defeated experienced competitors. Other students whispered among themselves, trying to reconcile this confident, skilled athlete with a quiet, stammering girl they thought they knew. Maya advanced through the semi-final match with similar dominance, defeating a technically skilled opponent from a well-known academy. With each victory, her confidence grew stronger, and her techniques became more fluid. She was no longer the nervous beginner hoping to survive her matches. She was a serious competitor with realistic chances of winning the entire tournament. The final match was announced over the public address system. "Ladies and gentlemen, in the lightweight division final, we have Maya Rodriguez from Dragon's Den Academy facing Brad Miller from Champions Martial Arts." A murmur ran through the crowd. Many spectators knew Brad Miller by reputation and expected to see him claim another easy victory. Brad's supporters cheered loudly as he stepped onto the competition mat, flexing in shadow boxing to warm up. Maya walked onto the mat with quiet confidence, her mind completely focused on the challenge ahead. She had watched hours of video footage of Brad's fights, trained specifically to counter his favorite techniques, and prepared mentally for this exact moment. As they faced each other for the traditional pre-match bow, Brad gave her a condescending smile. "Don't worry," he said quietly, just loud enough for her to hear. "I'll try not to hurt you too badly." Maya's response was barely audible but perfectly clear. You should worry about yourself." The match began with Brad implementing his usual strategy, overwhelming speed and aggression designed to end the fight quickly. He launched into the rapid combinations that had defeated so many previous opponents, expecting Maya to crumble under the initial assault. Instead, Maya demonstrated the defensive skills she had developed through months of intensive training. She absorbed Brad's attacks, deflected his strikes, and maintained perfect distance and timing. Most importantly, she remained completely calm, her breathing steady and her mind focused on identifying the patterns David had taught her to recognize. Brad's confidence began to waver as his usually effective techniques failed to break through Maya's defense. He increased his pace, throwing more powerful strikes, but Maya continued to neutralize his attacks while looking for her opportunities to counter. Midway through the first round, Maya saw the opening she had trained for. Brad overextended on a high kick, exactly as he had done in several of the videos Maya had studied. In that split second of vulnerability, Maya executed the counter combination she had practiced thousands of times, scoring 3 quick points before Brad could recover his balance. The crowd erupted in surprised cheers. Brad looked stunned. No opponent had ever scored on him so decisively, especially not in the first round. He began to fight more desperately, abandoning his usual tactical approach in favor of raw aggression. Maya had prepared for this scenario as well. David had taught her that frustrated opponents often became reckless, creating even more opportunities for skilled counterfighters. She continued her patient, tactical approach, allowing Brad to exhaust himself with increasingly wild attacks while she scored consistently with precise, well-timed techniques. By the end of the second round, Maya held a commanding 7-3 lead. Brad was breathing heavily. His earlier confidence completely evaporated. His coach shouted instructions from the sideline, but Brad seemed unable to adjust his strategy to deal with Maya's unexpected skill level. The final round became a showcase of everything Maya had learned during her months of training. She demonstrated superior conditioning, tactical intelligence, and mental toughness that left the entire crowd amazed. Brad, the heavily favored champion, could only watch helplessly as Maya systematically dismantled his reputation with a display of martial arts skill that few had expected from the quiet newcomer. When the final bell rang, the score was 1-2-4 in Maya's favor. A decisive victory that left no doubt about who deserved to win. As the referee raised Maya's hand to declare her the champion, the crowd gave her a standing ovation that seemed to shake the entire building. Maya looked toward the spectator section and saw her mother crying tears of joy and pride. Sensei Takeshi was beaming with satisfaction, knowing that his months of careful training had produced this remarkable result. Even David, who had pushed Maya so hard during their preparation, was clapping enthusiastically. But Maya's attention was drawn to a different section of the crowd. Jason Miller and her classmates sat in stunned silence, their expressions ranging from shock to embarrassment, to something that might have been respect. The girl they had mocked and dismissed had just defeated the regional champion in front of hundreds of spectators. As Maya walked off the mat with her gold medal, Jason approached her hesitantly. His usual arrogant demeanor was completely gone, replaced by something Maya had never seen from him before. Genuine humility. "Maya," he said quietly, I owe you an apology. A big one. I never realized, I never knew you were so..." He struggled to find words. Maya looked at him with calm eyes. You never bothered to find out," she said simply. Jason nodded, looking ashamed. "You're right. I'm sorry for everything. All of us are. We were wrong about you. Completely wrong." Maya accepted his apology with grace, but she felt no need to make the moment easier for him. She had not endured months of grueling training to gain Jason's approval or respect. She had done it to prove to herself what she was capable of achieving. The ride home was filled with celebration and reflection. Maya's mother couldn't stop talking about the incredible performance she had witnessed, while Sensei Takeshi discussed plans for Maya's continued training and future competitions. But Maya felt a quiet satisfaction that went beyond winning a tournament. She had discovered that her speech difficulties, which had seemed like such a limitation for so many years, had actually taught her patience, determination, and inner strength that proved invaluable in competition. Her silence had never been weakness. It had been preparation for the moment when her actions would speak louder than any words ever could. When they arrived home, Maya carefully placed her gold medal on her dresser, next to a photo of herself from 6 months earlier. The contrast between the uncertain, hurt girl in the photograph and the confident champion who had won today seemed almost impossible to believe. That night, as Maya practiced her forms one final time in her room, she reflected on the journey that had brought her to this moment. She had transformed from a victim of bullying into a regional champion. But more importantly, she had learned that true strength came from within, and that determination could overcome almost any obstacle. The phone rang several times that evening. Classmates who had never spoken to her before suddenly wanted to congratulate her, invite her to parties, and associate themselves with her success. Maya politely declined most of these invitations, understanding that their sudden friendship was based on her achievement rather than genuine caring. Monday morning at school brought a completely different experience for Maya. Students who had ignored or mocked her for years now nodded respectfully as she walked through the hallways. Teachers who had pitied her speech difficulties now looked at her with new appreciation for her determination and success. During English class, when Mrs. Dublin played with people, Peterson called on Maya to read aloud. The classroom fell completely silent. Maya stood up with confidence, opened her book, and began to read. Her words still came slowly and sometimes required effort to pronounce clearly, but nobody made mocking sounds or cruel comments. Instead, her classmates listened respectfully, recognizing that the girl they had underestimated possessed strength and character that went far beyond perfect speech. Maya had learned that respect was earned through actions, not words, and that true victory came not from defeating others, but from overcoming your own limitations and discovering what you were truly capable of achieving. Her silence had taught her to listen, to observe, and to prepare, skills that served her well both in martial arts and in life. The girl they had laughed at for her silence had indeed defeated the champion, but more importantly, she had defeated every doubt, fear, and limitation that others had tried to place upon her. Maya's greatest victory was not the gold medal she had won, but the unshakable confidence and self-respect she had earned through months of dedication, discipline, and refusing to give up on herself. Years later, when people asked Maya about that tournament, she would smile quietly and explain that winning the championship had been wonderful, but the real victory had been learning that everyone possesses hidden strengths waiting to be discovered. Sometimes it just takes the right challenge, the right training, and the courage to prove that others' opinions about your limitations don't have to define what you're capable of achieving.